Back on call. With that, members, I am prepared to again lift the call on file item 24. That's AB 1017. Clerk will post. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 41, noes 28. Measure passes. File item 34 is pass and retain. Moving to file item 35, that's AB 1217. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1217 by Assemblymember Daley, enacting the joint powers.
Mr. Daley, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This bill affects only Orange County. It is a local bill with the goal of modernizing the governance structure of the Orange County Fire Authority. The Board of Directors of this agency has expanded over time to its current size of 49 members, 25 primary board members and 24 alternate members. This number is seen by most as unwieldy and leading oftentimes to dysfunction at the agency. Some have floated the idea of reforming and updating the board to make it more efficient, but there has been no action taken by the board to this point. I repeat, the board has taken no action whatsoever to self-reform. This bill offers this agency a framework for reform, one that will help it become more equitable and less bureaucratic. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Daley. Mr. Wagner, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reluctantly have to rise in opposition. We are told this is an Orange County bill, and that is true. This is a bill related to the Orange County Fire Authority's Board of Governors, and it is opposed by the Orange County Fire Authority. This is a bill that is opposed by the cities of Aliso Viejo, Buena Park, Cypress, Dana Point, La Palma, Laguna Hills, Laguna Niguel, Laguna Woods, Lake Forest, Los Alamitos, Mission Viejo, Placentia, Rancho Santa Margarita, San Clemente, San Juan Capistrano, Seal Beach, Stanton, Tustin, Villa Park, Westminster, and Yorba Linda. I don't know how many of you know very much about Orange County, but I just listed well over half of the cities. I think that's about 2/3 of the cities in Orange County. All of them are opposed to this bill. There's no good reason to make the change now. There's certainly no good reason in my mind to make the change absent getting complete buy-in from all of the stakeholders in Orange County. It is, I think, significant to me that not only those cities, several of which I am privileged to represent, are opposed to this bill, but also that the entire delegation, save my good friend from Santa Ana, the entire Orange County delegation is opposed to this bill. It's premature. I would urge that the vote today be no, that an opportunity then would exist to come back, maybe make this a 2-year bill, maybe get all of the stakeholders involved and try to find a way to deal with the problems if they are real, if they are significant, and if they are susceptible to some resolution. But right now, the overwhelming sentiment coming up out of Orange County with respect to this Orange County-specific bill is not this bill, not this time, not now. And for that reason, I would urge a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Mr. Breaux, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I represent 8 of the 25 member cities of the Orange County Fire Authority and must respectfully oppose this bill today. But I do want to give my colleague from Anaheim some accolades. We've been discussing this for several months, and I appreciate his willingness to listen to me. But as I've said, unfortunately, this undermines a locally controlled JPA. As was mentioned by my colleague from Irvine, the Orange County Fire Authority opposes the bill, and it would be the first time the state stepped in to amend a JPA. The analysis at the local government committee stated that we may wish to consider whether it's appropriate for the legislature to dictate the terms of an already existing JPA. Changes at the board should come from the board. They should come from the members of the JPA, not heavy-handed down from Sacramento. The proposed language, as I said, I represent 8 of the 25 cities. We'll lose 6 seats. We'll go from 8 seats to 2. And for example, the city I hail from, Dana Point, the property tax formula is 1.5% of our property tax goes to fund fire services. Dana Point is a donor city. We pay $3.5 million more than we get in fire protection services. So we would not be represented on a board that we give our property tax to for fire services. So for those reasons, I'd ask for a no vote today. Let us continue working at the local level to find a solution, and I ask for your no vote today. Thank you.
Ms. Kim, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I must rise in strong opposition to AB 1217 also. I represent 6 of the Orange County cities, and none of those cities support this legislation. The Orange County Fire Authority is not a special district governed by the legislature. It's a joint powers authority. Modeling the governing structure of the bill to OCTA, which is a special district, is not an apples-to-apples comparison. This is an unabashed power grab by one large city, Santa Ana, which Mr. Daley represents, over a collective body, and it's outrageous for the state to intervene in a local JPA. The city of Santa Ana joined OCFA only 3 short years ago in the wake of a fiscal crisis. The move saved them millions of dollars and maintained the integrity of their fire stations, but now they're attempting to take over. If the city of Santa Ana wanted a stronger voice and to dominate decision-making, they should opt out of the JPA and maintain their own fire protection. In fact, larger cities in my district, such as Fullerton and Anaheim, are not partner cities with OCFA for this very reason, and they pay for their own fire departments. As we all know, the purpose of a JPA is to allow multiple localities to pool together resources to meet common needs. This bill would, in an unprecedented fashion, force the cities I represent to pay millions of dollars and have no seat at the table. I strongly urge a no vote to maintain the integrity of this important regional tool for the fire protection of almost 1.7 million residents in Orange County. I urge your no vote on AB 1217.
Mr. Allen, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to AB 1217 as it will negatively impact most of the cities in my district right there in Orange County. Let me be clear, this is not a district bill, members. The author represents only one of the cities impacted by this bill, the city of Santa Ana. And so everyone on the floor recognizes I also represent the city of Santa Ana, as well as 6 other cities that will be directly impacted by this bill. Let me restate that. I also represent the city of Santa Ana, and 6 other cities will be negatively impacted by this bill. The cities are Stanton, Cypress, Seal Beach, Los Alamitos, Westminster, and the Sunset Beach area. My colleague, Assemblyman Wagner, listed off the other 21 cities of the 22 cities that currently have a board on the OCFA, and they have all voted in their city council chambers, 21 of 22 members, to officially oppose this bill. Members, this is not a district bill. This bill is a clear example of the state stripping away local control and direct representation of my cities and the other cities of the Orange County delegation, interjecting itself into an area where there's actually no problem. It has been claimed by the proponents of this bill that the Orange County Fire Authority is not dysfunctional, that it is dysfunctional and unwieldy. I will tell you very clearly and plainly, the OCFA is not dysfunctional. It is not unwieldy. It's an established and well-functioning JPA, Joint Powers Authority, which according to its members runs smoothly with most votes being unanimous or near unanimous. In addition, if those members of the OCFA chose to reorganize themselves, they have that right. They have the authority whenever they so desire, and they have not done this. So really you have to ask yourself the question, if the members of the JPA themselves are not doing this, why would the state step in as my colleague Selman Bro mentioned, in an unprecedented move and tell a JPA what to do. To list off a few things so you understand what the OCFA actually does, they regionally deliver fire, emergency medical, and rescue services from 71 fire stations located across the 22 cities. They provide public education programs to schools, businesses, community associations, child care providers, and other members of the community. And they also coordinate the inspection of all commercial buildings, investigate fires, and enforce hazardous materials regulations. Very simply, with the reorganization contained in AB 1217, cities would be forced to leave OCFA and others would be forced to pay for services without the ability to have representation. So again, these cities, thank you very much, members. What this bill is trying to do is force these cities to have no direct representation on the Joint Power Authority, which delivers their essential fire and medical services. That's un-American. This country was founded on no taxation without representation. So I would contend very simply, if we're going to have our cities represented by a board, let this board make its own choices. Lastly, I would just tell you this. Members, this is not a district bill. If it was, I wouldn't be rising so strongly in opposition. Every single member of the Orange County delegation, with one exception, the author, has signed a letter all urging a no vote on this bill. 21 of the 22 cities have all voted in their city council chambers to oppose this bill. This is a bad bill. It sets a terrible precedent. It is not wanted. It is not necessary. Vote no.
All debate having ceased, Mr. Daley, you may close.
I respect the input from my Republican colleagues, although I have to say I'm a little surprised. Here I am trying to make government a little bit smaller in Orange County, and some of my colleagues don't quite get that. But you know what they say in Orange County? Longtime observers like to say, Orange County likes its government small and lots of it. This agency exemplifies that. 25 permanent board members and 24 alternates, a grand total of 49 board members. What you have is gridlock. You have gridlock on that board because they all say, most of them privately say, they'd like to serve on a smaller board. Observers of the agency point out all types of dysfunction, with all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Allen. And this is a vehicle to help that agency reform itself. They have told me they're looking at reforms, but nothing ever changes. So this is a vehicle for reform. I ask my colleagues to support it, and I will continue working to compromise with all the cities on this agency. My city of Santa Ana is the largest member. They voted unanimously to endorse this bill. The other two large members, the County of Orange and the City of Irvine, are neutral. So what you have is a lot of other cities who don't like it because they might lose seats. They might lose seats. So it's hard to take a big board and shrink it, especially if no one on that board will make a motion to do so. So they needed a friend like me, and that's what I'm doing. So I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Members, please withhold your applause during debate, even for Mr. Daley. With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 44, noes 25. Measure passes. Members, moving back to guest introductions, on behalf of Assemblywoman Catherine Baker, I would like to welcome visitors from the Happy Valley Elementary School in Lafayette with us in the gallery. Members, back on the file. File items 36 through 41, pass and retain. Moving up to file item 42, that's AB 1103. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1103 by Assemblymember Dodd, enacting the solid waste.
Mr. Dodd, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 1103 would establish a statewide definition of food waste in our law on recycling. California has set the goal to recycle 75% of solid waste generated in the state. Last year, the legislature set an additional goal for recycling organic waste, which comprises 1/3 of the state's solid waste stream. Food waste is nearly half of all the organic waste, so food waste is a sizable amount of the total amount of waste that is either being landfilled or recycled. When landfilled, organic and food waste decomposes into methane, a powerful greenhouse gas. Therefore, reducing the amount of organic and food waste that is dumped in landfills and increasing the recycling rate of this material contributes to achieving the state's GHG reduction goals. In order to help California and local jurisdictions better understand how much organic waste is being recycled and thereby how much GHG is being reduced, we need to track the method of disposal. A first step in tracking is to settle on a standard definition of what we want to recycle. There are as many as 40 different definitions of food waste being used around the state, and that leads to bad data on the recycling and organic and food waste. By establishing a common definition, we'll improve our tracking capabilities and better credit the efforts of cities and counties everywhere in their contributions to GHG reduction. I believe the amendments taken in committee have addressed a large part of the opposition's concerns, and we should be able to resolve the remaining issue before the Senate hears the bill. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 47, noes 13. Measure passes. File item 43, that's AB 882. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 882 by Assemblymember Wilk and others, enacting the school bonds.
Mr. Wilk, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I present to you AB 882. State law does not differentiate between school bonds for buildings versus bonds for furnishing and equipping of facilities. AB 882 would conform to federal tax guidelines by specifying that the term of a bond used for the purpose of furnishing and equipping a classroom, including electronic equipment, shall not exceed 120% of the average reasonably expected economic life. AB 882 will accomplish two things: protect taxpayer dollars by ensuring technology is paid off based on the life expectancy of the items being purchased, and equipping students by bringing more technology into the classroom to help compete in the 21st century global economy. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 69, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 44, pass and retain. File item 45, that's AB 306 for the purpose of amendment. Clerk will read with amendments.
Assembly Bill 306 with amendments by Assemblymember Hadley.
Mr. Hadley, you may open on the amendments.
Mr. Chair and members, I rise today for the purpose of amending AB 306. These amendments are technical in nature and clarifying and add co-authors. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, without objection, we may take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print and back on file. File items 46 and 47 pass and retain. Moving to file item 48, that's AB 517. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 517 by Assemblymember Gallagher, enacting the sexual health education.
Mr. Gallagher.
Mr. Speaker, members, I know we've been at this for a while, so I'll attempt to be very brief. This AB 517 is a bill that gives additional powers, empowers parents in the sexual education of their children by giving them the ability to go to the school and review the materials ahead of time, make copies, and also provides that when third-party consultants are doing the instruction on campus, that a list of their background training is given to the parents prior to the instruction. So I ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Baker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge an aye vote as well on this bill. Strongly support the ability of parents to get this information in advance of the curriculum being presented to children and to get information about who is providing the training. And I thank our colleague for this good bill and ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further debate on the item, Mr. Gallagher, you may close if you wish.
I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. With that, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 59, noes 3. Measure passes. File item 49, AB 884. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 884 by Assemblymember Rendon and act relating to initiatives.
Mr. Rendon, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 884 responds to the many initiative proposals that get submitted to the Attorney General for title and summary that would violate an individual's constitutional rights. The AG gets hundreds of requests for title and summary in an election cycle. If they can convince enough voters to sign their petitions, they go to the ballot. Through this process, the petitioners, signers, and the voters have very little information about whether the proposal is unconstitutional. AB 884 provides additional information to potential petition signers, offering them the Attorney General's opinion that the initiative would violate an individual's constitutional rights. We need to make sure the voters have enough information as to the constitutionality when they sign the petition, and that's exactly what this bill does. I ask for your aye vote on AB 884.
Thank you, Mr. Rendon. Mr. Ridley Thomas, you are recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, colleagues, I rise in support of AB 884. We heard it in the Elections Committee. It's a transparency bill, and along with a number of bills that have made it to the floor, strengthens the integrity of the elections process, make sure that the public is informed about rather complicated questions that come before them, and that appropriate oversight agencies are engaged in ensuring that the public knows what they're signing and are up to and how it affects public policy. I respectfully request an aye vote on AB 884. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Bigelow, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in opposition of this bill. I join my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, condemning this attempt to create a ballot measure legalizing murder. That's what was occurring previously. Somebody was trying to create a horrible bill. But I agree with my colleague over here who's trying to stop that. But I do believe that we have a checks and balance already in place. Luckily, we have the judicial system in place. In the event that voters do pass a proposition that is illegal and violates someone's constitutional rights, it will be struck down by the courts. This bill presents a cure that will be much worse than the disease. I am troubled that this bill would correct the current and the future, and whether they are Democrats or Republicans, the ability to kill a ballot initiative at his or her discretion. This bill goes far too far. The right of the people to create a ballot initiative is something that we must not tamper with. I strongly encourage a no vote.
Mr. Wagner, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Briefly, I'm going to rise in opposition, and I'm going to remind this body of the old adage, bad facts make bad law. There is right now, as we all know, circulating throughout the state or in the Attorney General's office, ready for circulation throughout the state, an absolutely ridiculous, abhorrent bill that everybody opposes. That, though, should not drive what would be very significant, wide-ranging changes to how we handle the initiative process in general. The Attorney General has rightly asked the courts to get involved in that case and put a stop to somebody making a joke out of our initiative system. She is right to do so, and all of us on our side of the aisle, and both sides, I think, certainly do applaud her efforts. That one-off circumstance isn't reason to now empower an elected official to single-handedly make fundamental changes in the way we handle, and more importantly, the way our constituents evaluate the initiatives that are put before them. The ability for one elected official to really play havoc is not going to happen in this case. The Attorney General is doing the right thing. But this isn't the only case we'll see. We will see further cases down the road pushing the envelope. We will see attorney generals that maybe we don't support politically who will decide they like or don't like an initiative and can write an analysis that one side of the aisle or the other will like or will not like. And that gets in the way of the fundamental right of our citizens to decide on initiatives. Is she right to put a stop to this one horrendous initiative? Of course. And if she doesn't put a stop to it, it's not going to get the signatures it needs. And if, God forbid, it gets the signatures it needs, it isn't going to get the majority in this state to vote for it. And if somehow we collectively lose our minds and it does get the votes it needs to pass, now notice how many bizarre steps down the road we are. The courts are going to put a stop to it. This is a solution in search of a problem. Don't let the bad facts of one horrendous case make bad law that we're then stuck with for the next however many years it takes us to undo this unwise and short-sighted immediate reaction to one provocation. We are giving the author of this stupid initiative exactly what he wants here. We're fundamentally changing the initiative process. We're getting all spun up about something that will die as it should die, a very deserved death. This bill is an overreaction. It's the proverbial hammer to deal with a gnat. Let's brush off this nonsense of an initiative. All of us recognize it isn't serious, and we are giving the author way much more already than the 15 minutes of fame he thought maybe he could get out of this stupid initiative. I'd urge a no vote. Let's not uproot 100 years of initiative policy to take care of one joker. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Quirk, you are recognized.
The fee was, $800 in 1942. This is a simple adjustment for inflation. But in addition, anybody who doesn't have $8,000. Oh, the bill? I'm sorry. My mistake. Oh, shoot. I apologize.
Mr. Patterson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I'm going to rise quickly to ask for your no vote on this. This really is very dangerous. This is politicizing what is or is not constitutional without the thorough vetting in a court to determine the constitutionality. And it places an elected official in a place of making perhaps political judgment rather than constitutional judgment. And so with that, I would ask for your no vote.
Mr. Gatto, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick point to clarify some of the things that have been said by some of the attorneys and some of the not attorneys on the floor. The Attorney General right now is already tasked with the first blush interpretation of statutes, including for their constitutionality. Any member of the public can request the Attorney General to give what's called an Attorney General opinion, and it is the duty of the California Attorney General to provide that opinion. Those opinions have the binding force if a court has not weighed in. So I think we've gone a little bit far afield down this notion that this is some new power for the Attorney General. That's just not accurate. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Allen.
I would actually disagree with Assemblyman Gatto on that last point. This is a brand new power for the Attorney General. I'll leave my statement to stand as it was just made. It's very simple. We all know that the Attorney General's office, whether it's the current Attorney General, Kamala Harris, or previous Attorneys General, they have the ability to politicize the content of what goes on our ballot. I'm not making any accusations here. I'm simply saying it's a fact of life. The initiative system is a fundamental right that we enjoy here in California underneath our Constitution. This is not a right that's granted by the state. This is actually one of the biggest checks to state power in California is the initiative process. by granting any attorney general of either political party, whether Democrat or Republican, the power to place a poison pill on disfavored initiatives and thus make their qualification virtually impossible. It would infringe upon the people's basic right of initiative in a manner that, members, is almost certainly unconstitutional and will be challenged. I urge a no vote on AB 884.
All debate having ceased, Mr. Rendon, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank all of those who spoke in favor of this bill, those who spoke against this bill, those who spoke about other bills. With respect to this being a poison pill, all this bill simply does is it gives voters additional information. It gives voters more information with which they can choose to sign or not sign a petition. The proponents can challenge the Attorney General's legal opinion in court as they can with any other summary. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Rendon. With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 48, noes 25. Measure passes. File item 50, pass and retain. Moving to file item 51, that's AB 1029. Clerk will read.